From AATH, the Association for Applied and Therapeutic Humor, this is Laughbox, the podcast for laughter and humor professionals. Here's your host, Chip Lutz.
Hello, friends, and welcome to Laughbox, the official podcast for the Association for Applied and Therapeutic Humor. I'm your host, Chip Lutz, and today is an absolutely banner day. Banner! And the reason it's banner is because I get to talk and have a conversation about humor with my good friend, Mary Kay Morrison. Mary Kay is the current president of the association, and we've got a little bit of a history, she and I. We met over a decade ago, and we've chaired several conferences together. She always appreciates my input, and I always appreciate her. We didn't always see eye to eye, but we always put on some really awesome conferences. Aside from being chair several times and president, she has formed, well, she's written a few awesome books. One is Using Humor to Maximize Learning, and one is Using Humor to Maximize Living, which hopefully we'll get to talk about today, because I'm all about maximizing my life, aside from just maximizing my waistband, which I've been doing all winter. So with that, welcome my good friend Mary Kay.
Thanks so much, Chip. I'm delighted to be doing this with you. Love the Laughbox concept and all you've done to initiate that. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, of course, you're my good friend, and we're alumni. We both graduated from Northern Illinois University. Go Huskies. What?
Go Huskies.
Go Huskies. From the same program, only, maybe a decade apart, because Mary Kay is a little bit older than me, since that she's got kids my age. But, oh, that's always funny.
You would get that in there. Yeah.
It's always funny to me. So for those people that don't know you, I know a lot of people do know you, but we have listeners that, aren't part of AATH. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where do you come from? And then we'll get into how you got your interest in humor.
Okay. Thanks, Chip. Yes, I started teaching at the kindergarten level. Loved it. It was really exciting to work with 5-year-olds. And I did that for several years. But then I got really frustrated in education with the lack of play that they were introducing in the early years. My belief is that children learn best through play. In fact, we all learn best through play. So
I agree with you on that.
And so I went back to school, got my administrative certification, and also went to learn about how adults learn. All of those opportunities led me to my resume that looks like I'm about 100 years old, but I'm not quite that old. I've had a wide variety of jobs that have contributed to my sense of play and my interest in humor studies. We studied the brain extensively when I worked at the Regional Office of Education for Illinois and the State Board of Education, and got really interested in the brain and how we learn. So combining neuroscience with humor has been a love of mine for about 30 years. And I know AATH has been an instrumental part of my growth in that area. So my roots are in early childhood, and my belief in play is really strong. So my first conference in AATH was a turning point for me, as I know it has been for many people who are interested in humor. And I'm happy to join you, Chip. We've had a lot of good times over the years, and sharing conferences has been fun, playful, and I encourage anybody listening who is interested in AATH to certainly join in the fun and play and the learning that occurs, which is, of course, super fun and super exciting.
It is. So let's delve into that a little bit, because I like, and we both have read Stuart Brown's book, Play, which is a great book. But from your perspective as an educator, how does humor really or play actually help in the learning process? What are the things that happen?
Well, as kids, we have an innate ability to play. It seems if you look at the brain, play really generates neural connections, and it also promotes creativity, critical thinking, and bonding among kids. So when we look at kids playing, we don't realize oftentimes how important that is. Play is the foundation for how we develop our sense of humor. I always love to talk about the expressions I see on parents' faces when they see their babies for the first time and they decide that they want that child to learn how to smile and laugh. Mm-hmm. That is universal to all cultures, but the faces we make at babies are pretty funny, and the purpose is to really get those children to smile and to laugh. And so all parents do that, and our brains are really designed for play and laughter. When we try to get rid of that with kids, we're really going against our natural inclination to learn through play. So the playfulness that we have is critically important, I think, for memory and learning. And as you know, Chip, we've talked a lot about how the emotions contribute to our learning process. And so I think that's the critical piece that I'd really like to talk a little bit about today. For instance, Chip, when you were in school, this is an experiment that I often do with groups that I work with, is when you were in school, first, second, third grade, what is your very first memory?
My very first memory of first grade was my first grade teacher bending over and me seeing her slip, and I thought, what the heck is that?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so where do I go from there?
No, but other things, being congruent with our conversation. I mean, from, a play standpoint, I mean, some of the best times I remember were, recess times. I don't remember a whole lot playing in class, but I remember, having a really good time at recess. And we learned a lot at recess because I hung out with some of the nerdy kids who knew, like we'd catch bugs and we just had a lot of fun at recess. That's what I remember.
So your memories are pretty much positive then, it sounds like.
Oh, yeah.
That's cool. When I do large groups, I ask people to really think back. And it's interesting that most people remember something that's associated with a strong memory. Oftentimes it's something that they were afraid of or an experience in school that made them angry or upset. Mm-hmm. Many times people will say that they even had teachers that, ridiculed them, and that memory stays a very long time. So my own experience was, and you'll find this hard to believe, Chip, I got put into the coat closet for talking too much.
The coat closet? Really? That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure it wasn't for you, but in retrospect, I mean, I couldn't imagine that happened in today's world. I mean, you'd have, the teachers would be fired. It'd be on headline news. I couldn't imagine that happened in today's world, but it's a different world today. So.
That's right. Well, we don't have coat closets too much anymore. Neither we have lockers. So
true.
Anyway, and I say that it was really not my fault. It was the girl ahead of me that was talking too much. But that's beside the point. My memory of second grade actually is how afraid and upset I was because I was put into the coat closet, and that is a very strong memory. I don't remember the teacher teaching me to spell, for instance, or teaching me math, but I do remember that's the thing that sticks in my mind. So I often ask educators or people that have an impact on others is, what are people going to remember about you and how you interacted with them in 20 to 30 years? So it's interesting that in the audiences that I do work with, that a majority of people have a strong, as I said, kind of negative memory. And we do know that emotions drive attention and attention drives learning. So that one of the things that I'm advocating for is that people think about how to use humor and laughter to promote learning, and especially how to use play. We learn through play, and when we take play out of the environment, I believe that the chances for learning are greatly diminished.
What does that look?
I think
what does that look like for an educator when obviously things with the current state of education today, and teacher is having to push to certain numbers and stuff. I'm sure that they're stressed out, and they would like to think that they would love to have more humor and play, but they've got to get all this curriculum done. What does that look like for educators today?
That's a really good question. And the interesting thing is, I think most educators are already incorporating humor and play and laughter into their classrooms. It's just not something that is looked at. And you're absolutely right. Educators are extremely stressed today because of all of the requirements and the mandates that have been given to them. And that was one reason that I started doing workshops on humor and play and laughter. Number one, to validate what people are doing in the field, because again, most teachers are already incorporating these kinds of things whenever they can, but also to share ideas on how to do that effectively, not only in the classroom, but in the workplace. We know that most educators, when they see a child come to class that is homeless, or a child who has been beaten, which happens more often than I'd like to think, or a child who comes who's upset just about something that happened on the bus, that teachers instinctively try to flip that child's state from one of anger and fear to one of optimism and joy, and because that helps the child be open to learning. The same is true in the workplace. All of us have bad days. If we come to the workplace upset, we had a flat tire, or we lost our cell phone, or something happened to us with our families, and we come into the workplace and we've had a really bad day, it helps if the environment is conducive to flipping our mood to one of positivity. And we can do that individually, actually, and I think that's the purpose of AATH often. I've learned a lot from the organization on purposefully taking something that's negative that's happened to you and flipping it to a more positive outlook. So teachers do this instinctively, I think, and so what I did was, when I was doing workshops, I gathered all of the great ideas from the teachers, and there were many of them. Over 9 years, I did workshops in schools in Northern Illinois. And my first book is actually a compilation of the great ideas that teachers are already using in their classrooms to incorporate humor, laughter, and fun into the curriculum. Because I think most teachers do realize that that is absolutely the best way to learn.
So what are some of the strategies that they shared with you?
Oftentimes, music and art and interactive play and games are very effective for helping children learn. Working with kids with helping them to find their playfulness and encouraging their creativity are really important. In the writing process, for instance, giving kids funny or silly prompts, for instance, helps a lot in the learning process. So teachers find all kinds of creative and fun ways to incorporate humor, juggling, dancing, magic tricks, and even incorporating technology with funny videos that might help with the learning process. One of my favorite strategies, though, was from a 7th grade teacher of social studies who actually used humor in the assessment process. You don't think about tests being fun or humorous, but what he did was he gave each child a section of the book, the chapter, to analyze and read and study, and the kids needed to each create a joke, riddle, or pun in a question format for the test. So the entire test or assessment was riddles, jokes, and fun. So the kids really enjoyed taking that test, which you often don't find at that level.
No, well, and it made them part of the whole process too, which, from a leadership standpoint, anytime you want somebody to be committed to an end result, you make them part of the process of getting there. And so they're going to be a little more committed. So that's kind of a cool strategy. I never really thought about that. As an educator myself, I really never thought about putting them in charge to help use humor to retain the information in that way. That's pretty neat. I remember taking a test. I think I was maybe in 6th grade, and I took the whole test. And the last question was, because at the very beginning of the test says, read all the directions, read the entire test before proceeding. But of course I didn't. I dove right in, answered all the questions, and then you get to the one was like, now go up and turn in the blank sheet of paper. You don't have to answer any of these. And it was like one of those things like, what? So then I went back and I was erasing everything, and it was just like the big joke the teacher had. It was hilarious. But what that caused me to do was that every test I've taken after that, I've read the entire thing to make sure it wasn't a trick.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, wasn't.
Some teachers actually put questions like, "Who is your favorite teacher?" Chip Lutz, Mr. Lutz, and give them a multiple choice test of, who the favorite teacher is right in the middle of the test. So putting jokes or riddles into the middle of a test is also a strategy that a lot of teachers use.
Well, I don't know if anybody's like me out there. I assume that some do, but for me as an educator, because I still adjunct for a couple colleges, I absolutely detest grading because it is so boring because you're reading the same thing over and over and over again. So I will tell my students straight out, look, if you don't know the answer, at least make something up that's funny. If you make me laugh, I might give you a couple gratis points. Just because
That's actually a good strategy.
Just because you took the mundaneness out of my chore, because it is still hate grading. Now, so
actually,
no, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, when you look at systems and you look at the emotional impact of different systems, I really believe that grading is fear-based. And one of the studies several studies that I've looked at have indicated that what we're doing in schools is teaching kids to learn for the test rather than learning for the sake of learning. So we have many teachers right now in elementary and high school who are actually doing different systems for assessment other than grades. And report cards in some districts have actually changed to reflect that idea that children do their own assessment of themselves and set their goals for what they want to learn. And then their report is how they felt like they achieved that goal. So there's some new things going on in education that I think are pretty exciting and take away that fear-based learning process that I think oftentimes grading involves.
What's funny is when you were talking about learning for the test, you just completely explained my entire undergrad experience. I was just completely garbage in, garbage out. I would study for the test, and then afterwards, I wouldn't be able to tell you what the heck was on the test or what I learned. That was the whole thing.
Yep, I do think that our whole system is something that we could take a look at, including more joy in the learning process. And I'm not sure that too many people think taking tests and taking exams are joyful. So that's a good point, Chip.
There's a lot of angst and fear and anxiety over tests. And you're right that with my own kids, they were always just studying away. Oh, I've got to get this grade here. And it's like, well, what are you learning? Well, I've got to get this grade here. And it just, I think that I don't want to say our whole educational system is wrong, but I think that we do a few things wrong, and bringing a little more joy back certainly will would make school more enjoyable, for lack of better words.
Yeah, and the other thing is that when children make choices of how they're going to learn, it seems like the research shows that that learning will stick. choices are extremely important, and that gives children a joyful option. The same is true in the workplace. We haven't talked much about the workplace, but oftentimes there are workplaces that are more fear-based and authoritarian rather than listening to what employees think would be the driving force in increasing productivity. We know that there's several examples of how humor and laughter and fun and play especially can be integrated into the workplace to increase productivity and to especially provide a more pleasurable environment and culture for the workers. We know that when workers are happy in their environment, that retention is increased and workers are more productive. So lots of good examples of that as well. And of course, in AATH, we find a lot of people that are actively doing that in the workplace, which is always exciting and fun to look at and to talk to those folks about what they're doing to make a difference.
I think you bring up a really good point on how humor and play can not only drive engagement, but also I think it drives innovation in the workforce. That when people are given the opportunity to not be in a silo, but color outside the lines. In today's competitive work environment, you want people that are looking at things differently, because if you're not looking at things differently, certainly you're not going to stay competitive. That's just a fact. So now in your book, Using Humor to Maximize Living, you hit some of these facets on how people can do this for themselves and for the people in the workforce.
Absolutely. One of the things that I think is fascinating is that the brain is a very interesting thing that we work with in the learning process and throughout life. And I feel like we're pioneers in learning more about the brain and how humor impacts our aspect of living. So one of the things that I talk frequently about is how can you flip a bad day or something negative that happens to you into a more positive outlook or framework in life. Mm-hmm. So looking at the whole idea of humor and play and laughter as a tool for helping you cope with whatever life throws at you is one of the things that I think is an invaluable source for me of just making my own personal life better. But also, I think we can use those kinds of tools to help in the workplace. Again, to create a culture where productivity increases, and the culture is one where people really love to come and work and network with their colleagues and friends. So I think these kinds of emotional benefits of humor and laughter are something that we can purposely put into both our personal life and professional life. And I know you do that all the time, Chip. So you are one of the people I think that is in the forefront of actually utilizing those tools on a regular basis. And I think that's one of the benefits of belonging to AATH and learning more about how to actually use the practice of humor for your benefit in both your personal and professional life.
I am going to find my high school guidance counselor and send her that quote you just said, that I'm in the forefront, because I'm pretty sure that she didn't think I was going to be in the forefront of anything when I was in high school.
That I hear that from a lot of people, that again, that's something that stuck with you because it was more of a negative impact in school, and so people carry those negative reactions through their whole life. And so again, one of the things that I always encourage people who are working with other people to do is to make sure that the emotions that the people that you are in contact with will end up being positive, because it will be a powerful kind of a thing for people to remember you by. Just a quick example. when you go into an office, for instance, a doctor's office, I had to go for a scan of my knee at one point, went into the doctor's office, and the woman who took my information never looked at me. She just was on her computer, said name, address, telephone number, never looked up at me, never smiled. And the whole atmosphere in that office was pretty dead and not welcoming. And yet when I go to my dentist office, it is so upbeat and so cheerful. I really don't like going to the dentist, but I love going to my dentist's office because I'm always greeted with a cheerfulness and warmth, and people are laughing and having a good time. So it's such a difference, and you can actually tell an environment where humor and laughter and play are part of the environment, and that leads to a trust in the work environment. The higher the level of fun and play, the greater the trust in the work environment. And the opposite is true. The more authoritarian and the more rules, actually the less trust that there is in that work environment. So again, humor and play are tools to build productivity and incorporate a culture of joy in the work environment.
Joy at work. It's almost like an oxymoron. Work, opposite of play.
That's
But
true.
I think you bring up a good point that I've just been doing some research on humor and play and customers, and that to me, the people that I like to do business with are the people that I consider friends. That, even if I get a faulty product here and there, if I know that it's a good environment and you're going to take care of me because we've got a good relationship, I'm going to still go back to you, even though I had, maybe one possible bad experience. And I certainly also agree with you that, you can usually walk into a place and know what the atmosphere is like just by the people that you're encountering. It's sometimes the atmosphere is so palpable. You could just, you walk in and just you feel like the energy completely drained from you as soon as you walk in, like you explained from when you walked into your doctor's office. Whereas with your dentist, and I personally hate going to the dentist as well. I actually had a dentist in the Navy. His name was Will Hurt. Truthfully, that was and he was hilarious. I hated going to the dentist because I had when I was a kid, I had a bad experience going to the dentist, and where they put a big rubber block in my mouth to keep me from biting, and I just have never liked going to the dentist. But I liked going to see Will Hurt because his name was hilarious and so sweet.
That's a great story. I love it.
Well, I guess so. He must probably be. What's funny is that his dad was a dentist as well, and his name was Will Hurt too. I just thought that they kept the joke. They kept the joke going. I thought that was great stuff right there. So, what are some for you when you go out and you talk to people about trying to increase your play? What are some some strategies that people can take right now? Is like these are things that you can do to increase the amount of play and humor, thereby increasing the amount of joy in your workplace and or your life.
I like the idea of keeping a humor, laughter journal, writing down what makes you laugh every day and trying to increase the laughter that you have. The other thing I really recommend is hanging around with people that you really enjoy and bring you laughter, and get rid of what I call the humor doomers in your life. And those are the people that can suck the energy right out of you. They're always in a bad mood, or they're not happy. And so if you hang around with those kinds of people too many times, your whole day can be kind of turned around. So I think that you can cope with anything that happens to you in life if you can really, in your own mind, start flipping it to, how can I make this funny, or what humor can I see in this? And then keeping track of, what did make you laugh, and how you can increase more of that in your life. One of the things that was really an aha for me is that whatever really bad things happened to me, when I figured out that I could laugh about it, I know I was starting to heal. I knew that humor was helping me process the grief or the anxiety or the bad experience that I had had, because when you're able to laugh about something, you're actually starting to cope with it. And so even if it's, the death of somebody who is close to you, that's why a lot of times we have laughter at funerals, and I know you've done some work on that as well, Chip, but the whole idea that whatever happens to you in life, if you can actually start to find the humor in it or to laugh about it or with other people, that it really helps you heal. And I want to be very clear that the grieving process is different for everybody. And so it may not be that you can laugh right away about something really horrible that has happened, including cancer or death or some other tragedy. But hopefully you will eventually be able to find some humor in life. And that's when you're starting to cope and being able to heal.
I like that you brought that out, because a lot of times that particular situation isn't funny, but certainly we can go into our humor toolbox to find something that is funny. And we might not be laughing at that situation, but it gives us that momentary respite that we might need, just so we're not completely in the depths of despair during that tragedy.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's
what are the things that make you laugh?
Well, besides you, Chip, and my good colleagues in AATH who are always keeping me laughing, my grandchildren do. I think kids do bring a lot of laughter into our life. And of course, my husband is a great punster and comes up with something unexpected at times that just really make me laugh. So again, putting people in your life that bring you joy and laughter is really important. The other thing I do is I play every day. And so I use the hula hoop. I actually like working on the pogo stick or jumping on the pogo stick. I love to swing when the weather allows. I find that brings me great joy and laughter. And I guess the other thing is I love trying to get other people to laugh. Go to the grocery store or at least smile. Try to bring joy to other people. I don't think there's anything more powerful than trying to in succeeding in making someone else laugh, or and I know you've experienced this too, Chip, when you do a presentation or are with a group of people, when you can make other people laugh. And it's not always jokes, it's just something silly or crazy that you said, not that you'd ever say anything crazy, Chiplets, but when you bring laughter to others, it also brings laughter to yourself. So through play and through engagement with other people, I think those are the things that bring me laughter and joy every day.
I'm always surprised how many laughs I get and smiles I get just by reading people's name tags, whether you're at the restaurants or like people forget that they're wearing them. So they'll come up and they're like, anything else? And be, no, thanks, Christy, we're good. And then look like, do I know you? And you've read their name tag, that's all you've done. But you've used their name and personalized their work in a way, but it makes them laugh. And they're like, it just always is funny to me how many people forget they're wearing name tags. But I do love having a good conversation, even at the checkout at the grocery store. Just the other day, I went, and the young man checking me out, he was like 20 years old. He wasn't old enough to scan my vodka. He had to call somebody else to scan it. And he was looking at the bottle. He's like, potato vodka? What is that? I said, well, so I gave him a tutorial. I gave him an overall tutorial on vodka. And he was just laughing because I made it kind of funny. And he just thought it was hilarious because he wasn't old enough to buy alcohol anyhow. But I told him, I said at the end, I said, so next year when you turn 21, you've got the information you need now in order to do it right. And he was just laughing. But it was just fun for me because I just like to personalize people's work and bring a little joy whenever I can.
Yep, I know you do that, and you do it so well, Chip. So it's been I tell you, I can't say enough about AATH and about the Humor Academy. And
Well, let's talk about the Humor
have.
Academy. And let me preface this right here, for those of you who aren't in the association, that it was, gosh, we were sitting in a meeting in Las Vegas, and this is probably 2007, and we talked a little bit about, as an association, having some kind of certification process in humor. And Mary Kay and I talked about it a little bit, and then Mary Kay took the ball and ran with it and developed an awesome program for AATH called the Humor Academy, where you can actually get certified as a certified humor professional. And it's got a course of study, it's validated, you can get graduate credit for it. So, tell us a little about that program, because I think it's pretty freaking awesome.
It is awesome. The awesome part about it is the amazing people that are in the program, including you, Chip. But it is a 3-year program. The first year is the theory of humor, and the second year is the application process and leadership. So levels 2 and 3 are how do you apply what you've learned in the theory of humor. So it is a 3-year program. We do give graduate college credit, and at the end of 3 years, you have achieved the certified humor professional. There are guidelines that are on our website on the requirements and the process. We have amazing directors of the program and advisors who work with us step by step in the process. The most exciting part of it, though, is the ability to work with other people in a wide variety of fields who are also purposefully using humor practice in their lives, in both their personal life and their professional life. And so we just meet amazing people from all over the world. We've had students from Japan, Nigeria, Finland, Norway, Venezuela, Russia, a wide variety of people who are all interested in humor studies. And what the people bring to the program is what I treasure the most, because it's a program that's not like others in that we actually seek and encourage people to bring their knowledge of humor to the table and share it with others. So it's a fairly unique program, and it's really been quite successful. We've had over 35 people actually complete the 3-year program and are now certified humor professionals. And if anybody's interested, they can sure go to our website and check out the information.
35 people out of a few billion on the earth. That's a pretty elite group.
It is. And I think it's growing, though, rapidly. So that's the good news. We are pioneers, as you know, Chip, in the humor business. And the research is just now emerging. AATH is based on research, and we are very careful to be sure that we share research that's authentic, and it is emerging. Not a lot of research has been done, actually, and we just look for research that's been validated. So that's an important part of our organization as well.
Yeah, I remember when I was working on my master's thesis, and it was on humor and education, how little there was out there that was public, scholarly, published, work that I could cite within. And we've come a long way, I think, in the last 20 years in being able to validate and put scholarly work out there on the applications of humor in all aspects of life, not just in education, but all aspects of life. The physiological, the psychological, all the different things that happen when we apply humor and play to our everyday lives. It's
absolutely
so many things that we know that we need. We know that we need to have a sense of humor about things, but sometimes it becomes very elusive when things are crappy in our lives. And all we have to do is really just kind of reach out and tap into, like you said at the very beginning, our inner child, and retrieve that playfulness that we once had.
That's absolutely true. And we do have a lot of resources on our website. There is a resource section. Many of our AATH members are authors, and so a lot of their published work and the research is actually on our website. So if anybody's interested in reviewing the research or is involved in doing a research paper or project, we encourage you to take a look at our website, and resources there are free. There's actually PowerPoints that have been done by the Nielsen's from Arizona State University that are also free access. So there's over 40 PowerPoints on a variety of topics that are free for people to use.
And that website is AATH.org. I'll make sure I just throw
That's
that
right.
out there. Just throw that out there. It's at the end of the podcast as well, but I throw it out there, a little plug for the association. So if after today people want to find you and find out more on your work, where do they go? What's your website?
My website is HumorQuest, HumorQuest. And that's, if they pull that up, they'll find me. So love to talk to people. They can also look on Amazon for my books, and I would love to connect with anybody on Facebook. I'm on social media and Twitter. So just my name on Twitter, Mary Kay Morrison, and on Facebook I have a HumorQuest page. Love to connect with anybody who's interested.
And I would highly recommend checking Mary Kay out if you're looking at having an in-service for your teachers, or somebody come in and talk about a more joyful workplace. Have her in. She brings the goods. Some people are fluff on when they come in and talk about stuff. She brings the actual real goods on. These are the things that you can do to make a positive change for yourself and other people around you, using humor and play. Well, I want to thank you, my friend, for spending a little time with me today, and I'm sure that our listeners are going to enjoy listening to the strategies you gave. I want to wish you the best of days.
Thank you so much, Chip. This has been pure play and joy. Thank you for having me.
Well, the pleasure was all mine. And for those of you listening, this has been Laughbox. I'm Chip Lutz, Unconventional Leader. You can find more information on AATH at AATH.org. Check us out. Come to the conference. You'll be able to meet cool people like Mary Kay and other people we've been interviewing. You get to meet me too, but I'm not as cool as they are. So it's been Laughbox. Thanks.
This is Laughbox, the podcast for laughter and humor professionals. Laughbox is made possible by a grant from the National Speakers Foundation and is brought to you by AATH, the Association for Applied and Therapeutic Humor. Find out more at AATH.org. Be sure to review Laughbox on iTunes. For show notes and more information about today's conversation, visit laughbox.aath.org.